everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for another true crime deep dive. So this case is going to be in two parts. It has to be. There's just way too much involved with it. But I promise I will have both parts out within a few days of each other so you don't have to wait that long. So in the fall of 2012, a young attorney named Ryan Poston was thriving professionally. At just 29 years old, he'd passed the bar in 2 states and opened his own law firm in downtown Cincinnati. Friends and family said he was smart, charismatic, and going places. But beneath the surface of Ryan's polished career and full life was a personal storm he couldn't escape. A girlfriend who had long crossed the line from dramatic to dangerous. Her name was Shaina, and while their connection started like so many others, it quickly, very quickly, unraveled into obsession, control, and emotional chaos. Ryan tried again and again to end it, but Shaina wouldn't let go, and soon she would show just how far she was willing to go to keep him all to herself. And I don't know if this case has recently resurfaced on social media or if there was a documentary released that has gotten people interested in it again. Let me know. But I've been getting a ton of requests to cover it. Specifically, I think because of my Jodi Arias coverage from years back. Shaina Hubers has often been compared to Jodi Arias for a lot of obvious reasons, which will become more obvious as we go through these next 2 videos. Jodi murdered her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander, on June 3rd, 2008 in Mesa, Arizona. The attack on Travis was both personal and excessively violent, which is also seen in this case. Both crimes are going to involve overkill, a level of violence that points to intense personal emotions like rage, jealousy, betrayal. Jodi Arias was portrayed as jealous, obsessive, and unable to accept that Travis had moved on after their breakup. She continued to contact him, even stalking him at times. Prosecutors argued that she killed Travis when she realized he would never be hers again. Shaina Hubers would also be similarly described as obsessive, and after Ryan tried to end their relationship for good, she sent him thousands of text messages, stalked his social media, and tried to maintain contact despite his clear desire to cut things off. Like Jodi, Shaina's behavior escalated as she felt she was losing control. But these are not where the similarities end. From the interrogation room to the courtroom, both of these young women exhibited odd and unhinged and attention-seeking behavior that would leave everyone even more confused. So we have a lot to talk about today. But before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Talkiatry. As we explore today's case, you'll notice just how often mental health plays a role in people's lives, whether it's acknowledged or not. And I want to take a second to talk about something that might really help someone out there watching or listening. It's called Talkiatry, and it's an online psychiatry practice that actually takes insurance. They're not an app or some chat bot with auto responses. Talkiatry is a real medical practice co-founded by a triple board certified psychiatrist. Their doctors can prescribe medication if that's the right path for you, and they treat a wide range of conditions: anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, OCD, even pregnancy and postpartum care, which is so important and which so many women do not seek out help for. And what I really love is how simple they've made it. You just head to their website, answer a few questions, and they'll match you with one of their 600 plus psychiatrists who fit your needs. You can book your appointment online, show up from the comfort of your own home, and get started on a treatment plan that's made for you. And the best part is there's no monthly subscription fee. You just pay for the care you need, and they're in network with major insurers, so you're not stuck with a huge out-of-pocket bill just to talk to somebody, just to get help. It's 100% online and completely judgment-free. So if you've ever felt like something is off, or like you've tried to find help but you keep hitting roadblocks, long wait lists, confusing insurance rules, or having to drive hours just to see someone, Talkiatry could be a game changer for you. I'm sure many of us know from experience that getting in with a mental health professional is very difficult, and a lot of people don't know where to start, or they start the process and it takes months. And when you're in a bad place mentally, emotionally, You don't have months. You want to start healing and feeling better soon. And if you're someone who's already started their mental health journey, or even someone who's still hesitant, I just want to say this. There's absolutely no shame in needing help. Whether it's medication, talk therapy, or just figuring out where to start, taking that first step is huge. And Talkiatry is here to meet you where you are. So if this sounds like something you or someone you care about might need, all you have to do is head to the link in my description box or scan the QR code on screen right now to check out Talkiatry for yourself. It only takes 10 minutes to get matched with a provider, and from there, it could truly change everything. Thank you so much to Talkiatry for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. As always, to understand what happened at the end, we have to go back to the beginning. Ryan Christopher Poston was born on December 30th, 1982, to Jay Poston and Lisa Carter. He was their first and only child together, and he was the center of their world. From the very beginning, Ryan was surrounded by love, and Lisa would later say she was the luckiest woman on earth, and Jay remembered Ryan as the kind of son who never left without kissing you goodbye and saying I love you. And that was just who Ryan was, affectionate and warm with the people that he cared about. When Ryan was still a baby, Lisa and Jay separated, but not long after, Peter Carter came into their lives, and by this time, Ryan was 1. Peter had already started filling the role of a second father. He and Lisa eventually married, and Peter stepped fully into the job of co-parenting Ryan right alongside Jay, Ryan's biological father. So Ryan grew up as the boy with 2 dads, and the adults all worked together amicably to raise him. And that just wasn't a polite arrangement. Jay and Peter, so Ryan's stepfather and father, they were genuinely close, and their friendship helped create something rare, a peaceful, unified family that stayed close throughout the years. It wasn't conventional, but it worked, and it worked well. Ryan was so close to his stepfather Peter that as an adult, he legally replaced his middle name with Peter's last name, becoming Ryan Carter Poston. It was more than a legal formality. It was a tribute, a powerful acknowledgement of the man who helped raise him, and it spoke volumes about the respect and gratitude Ryan carried for the people who shaped his life. Ryan's close friend Matt Herron said, quote, "He had 2 men who loved him like a son. He wanted to express how big of a role both of those men played in his life, so he had his middle name legally changed to Carter. He was very proud of that." End quote. Ryan primarily lived with Peter and Lisa, so his stepfather and his mother, in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, a small city at the very northern edge of the state. Though it sits firmly in Kentucky, Fort Mitchell is part of the greater Cincinnati metro area, separated from downtown Cincinnati by nothing more than the Ohio River. With a population of around 9,000, the town is known for its quiet streets, historic charm, and rolling parks. Its motto, "A great place to live and work," it's not just a line on a sign. In Fort Mitchell, it rings true. The crime rate is low, the community is close. It's the kind of place where people wave to their neighbors and build a life with intention. And that's exactly what Lisa and Peter did. Though Ryan primarily lived with his mom and stepdad, his biological father, Jay, wasn't far away. He actually lived just down the street. And their proximity meant that Ryan got to spend a lot of time with both sides of his family, moving freely between homes that functioned more like one big extended household. In time, Lisa and Peter would have 3 daughters, Allison, Catherine, and Elizabeth, and Ryan quickly stepped into the role of protective big brother. He adored his sisters, and they adored him right back. They all said that he wasn't just their protector, he was fiercely loyal, and he always made time for them, even later in life, as his career became more and more demanding of his time. Jay remained part of that world too. He was actually affectionately known as Uncle Jay by Ryan's younger sisters, and the whole family celebrated birthdays, holidays, and milestones together. So this really does sound like a great dynamic, the perfect dynamic. If you have to get divorced, this is the way to do it. This is what's going to cause the least amount of trauma and the least amount of kind of negative impact on the kids. And as we're going to see, it must have been good for Ryan Poston because he was a real go-getter. So when Ryan reached high school, Peter's job as a marketing executive for Procter and Gamble required the family to move abroad. So Ryan's teenage years were spent basically globetrotting. He attended the International School of Manila in the Philippines and eventually graduated from the Geneva International School in Switzerland. And he just adjusted easily everywhere he went. There was something worldly and curious about Ryan. He was the kind of person who could sit down with anyone, anywhere, and hold his own in a conversation. Honestly, with anyone, whether it was someone his own age, whether it was an older person. His friends would even later say that, they wanted to go out to bars and he would go with them, but they would be trying to like talk to girls or, just get some drinks. And he wanted to have these like huge philosophical, deep debates and conversations. And his friends actually loved it. They thought he was just so smart and had so many interesting intellectual things to say, and they would take part in these conversations willingly. It wasn't something that they were held captive by. Now, after high school abroad, Ryan returned to the United States and enrolled at Indiana University. He graduated in 2005 with not one, not two, but three majors: political science, history, and geography. Huge overachiever. For most people, that kind of course load would have seemed excessive, but for Ryan, it just made sense. It was easy. Jay, his father, once said that Ryan's favorite book was the dictionary, adding that his passion in life was knowledge. And that really wasn't an exaggeration. Ryan wasn't just smart, he was endlessly curious, a thinker in the truest sense. He loved learning. He was also kind, gentle, and almost impossibly bright. Friends described him as an extremely nice guy, very gentle, very kind. One friend called him super nerdy, super sweet. He thrived on deep conversations, thoughtful questions, and honest debate. He could talk to you about anything, and he usually did: politics, philosophy, geography, life. Ryan didn't just know the facts, he wanted to understand everything. He wanted to understand the systems behind the facts, and he had a way of asking questions that would make you think a little harder without ever making you feel small or stupid. He was also funny, great sense of humor, and on top of all of that, like, it's not enough, right? Smart, great conversationalist, kind, gentle, funny, um, well-traveled. He was very handsome. He was striking, some might say. At 6'3" with sharp features and a magnetic presence, Ryan Poston turned heads everywhere he went. He didn't chase attention, it just found him. Jay described his son as a man who was as kind as he was beautiful, as brilliant as he was unassuming. Quote, "People were drawn to his quick wit, his insatiable thirst for knowledge, and his encyclopedic grasp on most any subject they wished to discuss. When you challenged Ryan intellectually, you did so at your own peril, and yet he had a way of getting his point across without being condescending or arrogant, without ever raising his voice or losing his temper, and most impressively, without ever losing a friend." End quote. That's actually a pretty impactful statement now that I read it out loud. Yeah, he was able, like, he was so smart and he knew so much, but he wasn't a know-it-all and he wasn't condescending about it. And he didn't do these debates or kind of impart knowledge onto his friends in like a douchebag kind of way. He did so in a way of just, he was honestly and genuinely passionate about it, excited about it, and he was able to get them excited about it as well. And so he was able to kind of be like, hey, let me teach you, let me show you, without making people be like, this guy's a dick, we don't want to hang out with him anymore. That's pretty impressive. That's a pretty impressive feat. After graduating from Indiana University, Ryan didn't need to contemplate what would come next. He knew he wanted to go to law school. He always had. He was a natural debater, but he was also drawn to the intellectual challenge of the law. And it wasn't just about his interests or his intelligence. Law was in his blood. His father, Jay, had worked as an attorney for Kentucky Senator Jim Bunning and Governor Brereton Jones. His uncle, James R. Poston Jr., and grandfather, James R. Poston Sr., were respected lawyers and graduates of the Salmon P. Chase College of Law. Ryan's grandfather had even served as senior counsel for PG&E and was vice president of the Committee of 500, the same organization that helped rid Newport, Kentucky of organized crime in the 1960s. For the Postons, law wasn't just a profession, it was a legacy, and Ryan was ready to carry it forward. To prepare for law school, Ryan moved into a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo in Highland Heights, Kentucky. Suite 10 at 12 Meadow Lane would become Ryan's home base for the next several years. Highland Heights sits just 10 miles from Fort Mitchell, where he grew up, and 7 miles south of Cincinnati. What started as a farming community in the 1920s had grown into a quiet suburb with a population of about 6,000. It's home to Northern Kentucky University and blends residential neighborhoods with small businesses, Fortune 500 companies, and just enough restaurants and shops to keep things interesting. And it made sense for Ryan to land there. Not only was it so close to home, but it was also close to Ryan's new college, Chase Law School, the very place where his grandfather and uncle had studied before him. The Salmon P. Chase College of Law is a small public school on the campus of Northern Kentucky University. With fewer than 400 students and a faculty of about 65, it has a long-standing tradition of producing respected lawyers. The school is named for U.S. Chief Justice Salmon P. Chase, who was appointed to the Supreme Court by President Abraham Lincoln in 1864. Before his appointment, Chase served as a senator and governor of Ohio and as Lincoln's Secretary of the Treasury. He'd been a fierce abolitionist and often represented enslaved people and those who helped them escape, sometimes free of charge. Chase was known in his time as the Attorney General of runaway slaves, and the law school eventually relocated across the river and became part of Kentucky State University's system. While attending Chase, Ryan took on a law clerk internship just over the state line in downtown Cincinnati. That kind of cross-state commute was common in the region, and Ryan fit right in. His mentors at the farm remembered him as a sharp dresser and a hard worker, like even when he was just doing an internship, even when, it wasn't his own company or his full-time career, he always wore a suit to work every single day. He was also someone who often stayed late into the night, not necessarily to impress anybody or, show them that he was burning the midnight oil, but he was just so dedicated to mastering the work in front of him. The law is very complex. There's really so many gray areas. Nothing's black and white here. There's so many loopholes and things that you can figure out. And I think the best lawyers really do familiarize themselves with the law inside and out. And that's exactly what Ryan Poston was doing or trying to do, and honestly would eventually do. At home, Ryan lived with his roommate, Matt Herron. We talked about Matt briefly, but Matt was a close friend from Indiana University. And Matt said law school didn't seem hard for Ryan. I mean, Ryan already got an undergraduate degree in like 3 different majors, so I feel like law school would be a breeze by that point. But Matt said they would often stay up late debating political philosophy, literally just for the fun of it. And I totally understand that, actually. Matt actually remembered Ryan as someone who was good at everything. Matt said, quote, he was smart. People listened to him when he talked about anything. He could speak intelligently about anything, end quote. Allie Wagner, another close friend of Ryan's, said, quote, I just always thought that I was going to see Ryan make it so big. And he was on his way. He really was. He was too smart to not ever make it big, end quote. So in 2008, Ryan graduated from law school. He continued living with Matt in Highland Heights and eventually passed the bar in Kentucky. The following year, he passed the Ohio bar as well. And at first, he worked at a law firm with a partner and continued building his career from there. And outside of work, Ryan spent time with his dog, a Maltese Yorkie mix named Oliver. And he kept up with his favorite things, right? Chess, bourbon, politics, philosophy, and target shooting. His dad, Jay, was a regular presence at the condo, not just to visit, but to help. One time, Ryan asked Jay to drop off some shirts at the cleaners, and from then on, Jay took it upon himself to do Ryan's laundry and clean the condo 3 times a week. So Ryan Poston, a lot of great qualities, right? He's like 99% perfect, but he did not care much about keeping a clean apartment. He didn't care much about tidiness, but his father Jay did, and so he kept the space in order. And the two of them also spent a lot of time hanging out together, often discussing politics and world events, or just talking about life, like what was going on in Ryan's life, what was going on in Jay's life, etc. In the spring of 2011, Ryan had just ended a long-term relationship with a woman named Lauren Worley. She was a student at Chase Law School, and Ryan met her in 2009 after he'd already graduated and while he was studying for the bar exam. Lauren said that it was love at first sight. She said, quote, "I thought he was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. It was love at first sight, and I guess it was 3 days later I had the key to his apartment. I remember thinking, I cannot believe that he wants to date me. He's just so perfect and so beautiful. Ryan Poston is one of a kind. I felt so loved," end quote. The happy couple soon got an apartment together along with 2 dogs, Max and Lily, and everyone thought they were the perfect couple, including Lauren's previous roommate, before she lived with Ryan. And this previous roommate described Ryan Poston as being like Edward Cullen from Twilight. And this roommate said, quote, "He is just such a protector, so soft-spoken, always there. Even his build was similar to Ryan's," end quote. Now, one of Ryan's big interests was guns, and this actually made Lauren feel safe. She said that Ryan would always have a gun on him, one in his boot, one in his holster, and she said, quote, "It was almost like that guy is a man and he can protect," end quote. He may have been a protector, he may have been a gun guy, but Ryan was also dedicated to self-defense and gun safety. And because they lived together and he had firearms around, Ryan showed Lauren how to shoot and safely handle a gun because he didn't ever want her to pick one up and end up hurting herself or someone else. Lauren also really loved Ryan's family. She liked how motivated, successful, and loving they were, and just in general, how they made everyone feel welcome and comfortable. She said she could tell they were all movers and shakers who were doing big things. It's like every single person in this family is just, up to something, like something good, something big. They're motivated, they have dreams, they have aspirations, and they're actually doing things to reach those dreams and aspirations. And yes, Ryan and Lauren, they did break up. And Lauren would later say, quote, "We broke up always thinking, in the back of my mind at least, that we would end up back together," end quote. According to friends and family, Ryan was still processing that breakup when he started seeing someone new. And her name was Shaina Michelle Hubers. The two met on Facebook after Ryan sent Shaina a friend request. So he'd come across a photo of her in a bikini taken in Daytona Beach and decided to reach out. And I think he was probably looking through his recommended friends and saw Shaina because Shaina knew Ryan's cousin. I think she was friends or acquaintances or knew Ryan's cousin somehow. And so he probably saw her in his, people you might know section. So he sends her, what is it called? A DM? It's called a DM, right? He sends her a Facebook message. And Shaina replied very quickly, right? Her first message to Ryan said, "How do I know you? And you're gorgeous, by the way." And then Ryan responded to Shaina, "You're not too bad yourself. Ha ha." And just like that, the path of Ryan Poston's life would be forever altered. Shaina Michelle Hubers was born on April 8, 1991, to her parents Sharon and Robert Hubers in Kentucky. She grew up in Lexington, the second largest city in the state. Lexington's actually awesome. They have a population of around 320,000. So if you think about the towns where Ryan grew up in, population of 9,000, population of 7,000, Lexington, where Shaina grew up, 320,000. And it's known as the horse capital of the world, by the way. Lexington is home to hundreds of horse farms and has a deep-rooted equestrian culture. It's a great city. I like it. So Shaina was extremely close to her mother, Sharon, who worked as a school teacher as Shaina was growing up. Sharon once said this about her daughter, quote, "That child has been a blessing to me. She's my whole life. My life didn't happen until Shaina was born," end quote. Now, Shayna's childhood friend Sarah Robinson echoed that sentiment, stating, quote, "She was very close to her mom. I think her mom, for a good portion of her life, could have very well been her best friend," end quote. And that's fine, right? You want, daughters and mothers to be best friends. It's fine until you're kind of getting to like Brian Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie territory, because I'm sure that Roberta Laundrie would have said that Brian Laundrie was her best friend. And maybe at a time before he met Gabby, at least Brian would have said Roberta was his best friend. But there are toxic friendships. So Shaina, super close to her mother, very close, okay? And she did well in life as well. She excelled academically. Her friend Sarah described her as being close to genius. She was in all of the AP classes, earned top grades, and received numerous awards for academic leadership. And outside of school, Shaina was a talented soprano and a gifted performer who really loved acting, and reportedly someone who would often like boast about her acting skills and how good she was. And many years after Shaina Hubers had brought her acting skills from the stage to the courtroom, 48 Hours correspondent Peter Van Sant asked Sarah Robinson, Shaina's friend, was Shaina a good actress? And Sarah said, well, she thought she was. Shaina thought she was a good actress. Whew, it's chilly in that shade. Now, in the summer of 2008, Shaina attended the Governor's School for the Arts. The following year, she graduated from Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Lexington and went on to the University of Kentucky, where she studied psychology. She studied psychology on multiple scholarships before eventually graduating cum laude. Now, keep in mind that by the time Shaina met Ryan, she was in her junior year of college, I believe. So this meant that at that time, when they met, Ryan was 28 years old and a lawyer, while Shaina was a 19-year-old college student. And is that a huge age difference? I guess not. I mean, would I want my 19-year-old daughter dating a man who was almost 30? Probably not. Do I think a 19-year-old is emotionally and mentally capable of meeting like an almost 30-year-old where they are? Probably not. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see reflected, among other things, as we go throughout these episodes. And I suppose on paper, Ryan and Shaina seemed like a good match if you just ignored like their date of births. They were both intelligent, ambitious, attractive, charismatic, well-liked, and, academically driven. But according to people who knew Shaina well, there were some deeper issues that wouldn't show up in a resume. Her childhood friend, Sarah, remembered Shaina as someone who was emotionally immature, especially when it came to relationships. Remember Sarah Robinson, who told Peter Van Sant that Shaina fancied herself to be the next Meryl Streep. Well, she also admitted that Shaina did have a flair for the dramatic when it came to boys, crushes, and relationships. Sarah said, quote, if a guy like broke up with her or something, or if a guy just said they weren't interested in her, she would take it pretty hard. Crying and maybe a little screaming, she didn't really like to let things go, end quote. Shaina was also described as being extremely spoiled with a pattern of dishonesty. According to those who knew her, Shaina was not used to hearing the word no, right? She probably didn't hear it a lot growing up. Shaina didn't seem to fear any consequences for her behavior. She knew it would all be okay in the end because her parents would bail her out and still love her unconditionally and probably like blame other people for the way that she was or the things that she did, kind of like Casey Anthony's parents, the making of a psychopath, honestly. But at the time that Ryan Poston came across Shaina in a bikini on Facebook, none of that was on his radar, right? He doesn't know her past. He doesn't know who she is. He just knows she looks good in a bikini. And sometimes that's all it takes. So he sent her a friend request. She messaged him back, right? She's like, how do I know you? Also, you're like so gorgeous. You're so handsome. Oh my God. And then a few weeks later, in April of 2011, they met in person at Shaina's 20th birthday party. From there, the two began texting regularly. And yeah, they saw each other here and there, but actually not a lot in person. A lot of their kind of first weeks, months together was texting back and forth. And eventually they started dating. But right from the start, they were on different pages. I mean, some might say they weren't even in the same book. Some might say they were in different books, different genres of books. Like one was, nonfiction, like historical documentary, and the other one was like fiction, like some fairy vampire romance novel. And those books probably are also in different languages. According to Ryan's friends, he saw the relationship as casual, something low pressure and undefined. In fact, his friend said that they didn't know if Ryan would even say that he and Shaina were in a relationship. He was looking for a situationship before that was even a defined thing. Ryan's friend and roommate, Matt, later said, quote, he was very busy with work. He wasn't really looking for anyone. He tried to end things a few times. He didn't want to hurt her feelings. Unfortunately, she just refused to take no for an answer, end quote. Where have we heard that before? Oh yeah, Shaina's friend said that she didn't take no for an answer. And although Shaina clearly wanted exclusivity and commitment from Ryan, it seemed that even she was aware of their mismatched needs. She texted a friend saying, quote, he says he's only with me because I make him feel so awful about it when I cry, end quote. And those around the growingly odd couple said that Shaina was completely infatuated with Ryan. She was down bad and not afraid to show it. She would send Ryan 50 messages for every one he sent back. So for some context, during the trial, evidence was presented that during this time period, roughly 50,000 texts were sent between Shaina and Ryan. Ryan is believed to have sent between 50 to 100 of those texts, while Shaina sent the other 49,000. How do you write like you're running out of time? It's a Hamilton reference, but Shaina clearly overwhelmed Ryan in a lot of ways, right? Emotionally, mentally, even physically. And he would often give in just to stop the pressure. One of Ryan's colleagues, Ken Hawley, said, quote, he kept doing the easy thing, which was staying with her. She would just wear him down, end quote. But Ryan never actually fully ended things, right? Just as the relationship for Ryan was kind of undefined, him not wanting to be in that relationship anymore was also left undefined. Friends and family believed that it came down to Ryan's personality. He didn't like confrontation and he didn't want to hurt Shaina. He didn't want to hurt anyone. One friend of Ryan's named Tom said, quote, he just wasn't able to. He was too nice and didn't want to hurt her feelings, end quote, which is like, I mean, at some point you got to, all right? When she's sending 50 texts for every one of your texts, this is a red flag. This is a sign. This is a sign that someone can't regulate themselves, and this is a sign that, she's a lot. She's going to be a lot. So by November of 2011, Ryan and Shaina's relationship had settled into a toxic pattern. And this was a toxic pattern that anyone on the outside could see and could see that it wasn't healthy. They'd break up, then get back together over and over again. Even when they weren't technically together, Shaina wouldn't leave Ryan alone. She wasn't just acting like a clingy ex. She was behaving like someone who couldn't take no for an answer, just like her childhood friend, Sarah Robinson, said. It went well past being emotional or immature or lacking self-awareness. Sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't realize how crazy I was acting. No, Shaina was behaving like a stalker. And for Ryan, it just wasn't easy to draw a firm boundary. Every time he tried, Shaina would flood his phone with dozens of messages, whether he replied or not. And when that didn't work, she'd show up in person and refuse to leave. Sometimes she'd use her key, because Shaina had a key to his townhouse, to let herself in to Ryan's townhouse when he wasn't even home. It went far beyond showing up uninvited. Shaina started texting Ryan's neighbor, Nikki, to ask whether Ryan's car was in the parking lot. And so she was using Nikki as a way to track Ryan, because you can't just sit outside his house all day, every day. You have to go to classes and go to work. But basically, the neighbor, Nikki, said, quote, Shaina said he was probably at the bar and she wanted to make sure he wasn't cheating on her, end quote. Keep in mind, this is when Ryan and Shaina aren't really together. They're on an off period. They were on and off again a lot. And Nikki could tell just from what she saw and heard that the relationship was toxic. She said, quote, I was awoken out of my sleep by some screaming and yelling outside, and they were arguing. This is something that happened quite often, end quote. Shaina also told Nikki that Ryan had been abusive, okay? Emotionally abusive. First, that's what Shaina said first. She claimed that Ryan made comments about her appearance, that he told her she needed a boob job, a facelift, she needed to lose weight. On one occasion, Shaina came to Nikki's door crying with red marks and visible handprints on her arm. And Nikki said, quote, she had come to my door crying, and her arm, probably from like here to here, she had a big red mark on her arm. She said that Ryan had slammed her arm in the door and threw her on the floor in the hallway. She was clearly upset. There were handprints on her arm, and I told her, Shaina, you need to call the cops. You know you need to report this. And she wouldn't do it, end quote. So when Peter Van Sant asked Nikki why Shaina didn't leave, like why didn't she just leave, why she keeps showing up to his townhouse and letting herself in with his key, Nikki replied, quote, I guess because she was young and she always told me she loved him. She picked up his laundry, she did his laundry, she took his dog out, she went and bought him food, she did everything for him, end quote. But Shaina's presence wasn't just felt at Ryan's condo. When she couldn't reach Ryan on his personal cell phone, she would call the front desk of his office and ask to speak to him directly. Sometimes she would just show up in person, even when she and Ryan weren't on good terms, like if they were arguing, if she was sending him 100 texts and he wasn't responding, if she was sending him 100 texts and he was like, yo, stop texting me, I'm done, I'm not going to talk to you anymore, leave me alone. She would show up to his office. She'd bring him lunch. She would wander around the building. She would linger in spaces where she didn't belong, right? She had no business being there. Now, Ryan's colleague, another lawyer, Ken Hawley, he said it was weird. He said it was really weird. And he said he saw this happen all the time. It wasn't just like once in a while. It would become like a weekly and sometimes a daily thing. And even though Ryan had told Shaina clearly and more than once that the relationship was over, Shaina would try anything to keep a grip on him. Shaina actually started stalking Ryan's ex-girlfriend, Lauren. She would go to places where Lauren was known to hang out. She would talk to people that she knew Lauren. Lauren said, quote, she used to go places asking everyone if they knew me and if they thought I was prettier than her. It was like she had an obsession beyond Ryan, end quote. Meaning like, it wasn't just Ryan who was the target of this. It was Lauren. It was Ryan's friends. It was kind of like anyone who was connected to Ryan. Shaina almost saw this as a way to get at him, get to him, or get information about him and what he was doing. And when Shaina and Ryan were together during those very brief on periods, right? Because like I said, Shaina and Ryan would be on and off again a lot. But their on periods, like when they were together in a relationship or whatever they were doing, very short. It was like for Ryan, Shaina was a small doses sort of person. And then they would fight and argue, break up, be away from each other for a few weeks, a few months. I think that the time of being away from each other got longer every time they broke up. And then they would get back together, but for a very short time. So during those brief on periods, Shaina just didn't hold back. It wasn't like she was thinking, hey, he doesn't like this weird, creepy stalking stuff I do. He doesn't like this weird possessive thing I do where I, follow him around and look at his ex-girlfriends on Facebook. So I'm going to, reel that in. I'm going to try to make that better in myself and not feel like I have to do that stuff. So hopefully it can work this time. No. Shaina Hoopers did not do that. She would be with Ryan, again in a relationship, and then she would go through his phone looking for evidence of other women. She logged into his Facebook account and then blocked anyone that she didn't like. She was constantly checking up on him, constantly trying to control who he talked to, where he went, and how he spent his time. And Ryan talked openly about it with friends and family. He told them he was trying to move on, but Shaina wouldn't let him. At one point, he sent a message to his friend Allie that said, quote, literally probably the craziest fucking person I have ever met. She almost scares me, end quote. And his friend Allie could see it too. She said, quote, she was so cold, you could just immediately tell that she was just obsessed with him. I think she had a goal in the beginning to make him settle down with her. And when she wasn't successful, that became a problem, end quote. And I think it was Allie, Ryan's friend, who said that she kind of got gold digger vibes from Shaina. Like she felt Shaina saw Ryan as someone who's going to be successful, personally, in his career, financially. And she was like, here's my ticket to be a trophy wife, to be like a stay-at-home mom, whatever. And that wasn't really working out. Like in Shaina's mind, he was the perfect prize. And anyone who told her that she couldn't have him was going to be an issue. And you might say, like, why is Ryan texting his friend Allie, another woman, and saying Shaina's the craziest fucking person I've ever met? But then we know that Ryan would get back together again with Shaina. Well, it's my personal belief and theory that all men kind of like that a little bit in women, right? They kind of like the craziness. They like the jealousy and possessiveness. Like they don't like it, but they kind of like it because now that's how they know that you like them and that they kind of like got you. They like it. But it had gotten to a point, I think, where it was too much. But then also, again, they would spend some time apart, and maybe Ryan was like, oh, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Like, how could she possibly be that bad? She's not that bad. Look, she's so pretty. I'm going to look at her bikini photos again. And then, they would get back together and he'd be like, oh, it's worse than I thought it was. It's actually worse than I imagined during our time away. So in February of 2012, Ryan broke up with Shaina again. He texted her and he said, listen, you can tell people that you broke up with me. I don't care. We got to be done. Now, this did not stop Shaina. She responded, quote, I love you, Ryan Poston, and I think I'm the last girl that will ever love you if you head down this path. Do you think we will ever get back together? I just want to lay next to you again. I love you dearly, far more than you deserve, end quote. Man. So even after that, she didn't let go. Within a month, Ryan sent another message. And this message said, and he was using caps, all right? He's saying it with his chest. He said, quote, Shaina, stop texting me. I no longer have the patience to deal with you, end quote. But did she stop? No, she didn't stop. Shaina kept messaging Ryan. By April, the tension between Ryan and Shaina had reached another boiling point. Shaina confronted Ryan, accusing him of making degrading comments about her to other people, which, I mean, he was, right? He's like texting his friend Allie and being like, Shaina's the fucking craziest person I ever known. So definitely accurate, but also earned and deserved, right? So according to Shaina, this confrontation turned physical. She claimed Ryan picked her up and threw her into the doorstep of his condo, or like onto the doorstep, like on top of the doorstep. And then he beat her with the door as she tried to leave. Whether that version of events was accurate remains unclear. I'm going to tell you my opinion because that's what I do. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Now, Ryan did acknowledge that something happened in a text to his cousin, Carissa, who, remember, that's the cousin that was also friends with Shaina. He wrote, quote, she came to my place on Sunday morning and I literally had to pick her up and throw her into the hall, end quote. So what I think happened is Ryan just actually physically removed her, right? She's a little girl. He's like 6'2", pretty broad-shouldered and strong. He was probably like, get out of my apartment. And she's like, no, I won't. And so he was like, okay. And he like picked her up and walked her out the door and placed her outside. And then she was like falling all dramatically on the ground. Ryan did not beat her with the door, but Ryan was exhausted. He told Carissa, quote, this is getting to be restraining order level crazy. She's shown up at my condo like 3 times and refuses to leave each time. You need to talk to her. She needs help. And I say that without exaggeration. She just really needs help, end quote. And he wasn't being dramatic, right? He's saying, I'm saying this without exaggeration. He's a lawyer. He's being literal. He's not exaggerating. Shaina's behavior had escalated well past the point of concern. Ryan had tried to break things off again and again, and she just simply refused to hear it. She simply refused to let go. But here's the thing. Even if he had wanted to take legal action, his hands would have been tied, and he would have known that. Kentucky law didn't allow him to get a protective order unless he and Shaina were married or living together, and they never had, thankfully. Which is weird. I wonder if that's changed, if the law in Kentucky's changed since then. Because why would you only be able to get a restraining order against somebody who you've lived with or are married to? Like, I think Shaina Hubers is the prime example of how, just a girlfriend who doesn't live with you but has a key to your condo can require a restraining order. So both of Ryan's fathers, his father and his stepfather, they urged him to walk away from her for good. They knew he struggled with confrontation. They knew he had an issue with that. And Ryan's father, Jay, told him, quote, "The girl needs to go, but be nice. Always be respectful. Always be nice because it speaks to who you are as a man." Eventually, Ryan did what he could. He blocked Shaina's number from his phone, and for a while they stayed broken up. Months passed. It was the longest stretch of time they'd been apart. And then that spring brought milestones for both Shaina and Ryan. In May, Shaina graduated cum laude from the University of Kentucky after just 3 years. So she's pretty smart too. Like, she's smart, she's driven. I don't know, though, how she found time. Now that I think about it, I don't know how she found time to send all those text messages, stalk Ryan, stalk his ex-girlfriend, talk to the neighbor, and also finish a 4-year degree in 3 years. It's great. I don't know. Like, it's impressive, actually. They're both impressive people. So Shaina graduated a 4-year college after just 3 years, which she, minored in stalking and harassment. And Ryan opened his own law firm. At just 29 years old, he launched a practice in downtown Cincinnati in the same building where he had once interned. And I mean, think about how just impressive that is, right? Before the age of 30, not only do you have like 3 college degrees, you graduated law school, you passed the bar in 2 states, you opened your own law firm before the age of 30. Like, he's like a boy wonder at this point. And Ryan's firm focused on personal injury law, primarily car accident cases, and it was really clear to everyone around him that Ryan was going places. Like, this was just the start of a very bright and promising career in life. Ken Hawley, we talked about him briefly before. He wasn't just Ryan's colleague. He wasn't just a fellow lawyer. They were friends, and Ken was kind of like Ryan's mentor. The two would spend hours locked in intense chess matches and debates about current events, politics, life, anything mentally stimulating. And you can tell that Ken Hawley truly respected his younger friend. And he said, quote, "He was going from 0 to 100 probably faster and better than any other young lawyer could have or than could be imagined. He was that good at what he was going to be doing. He was excited about his future, and his future was very bright." End quote. Ken also said that Ryan had a, quote, "strong feeling of wanting to help people who wouldn't otherwise have access to the legal system and who might be steamrolled by the legal system without someone there to help them." End quote. Ryan believed deeply in being of service, and he took his clients seriously. He never ignored a call. He always showed up in a suit. He's still dressing every day in a suit, and he treated people with respect. His father, Jay, would later speak with some of Ryan's clients, and they told him that Ryan made them feel like they were the only person on earth, that their problems became his problems he wanted to solve. And I think that's something about Ryan that may have attracted Shaina to him, because a lot of people said this, like, when he was sitting with you and talking to you, he was focused on you. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking around. He was focused on you, on what you were saying. He seemed genuinely interested. He would make you feel like you were the only person on earth. And someone like Shaina, whose personality and everything we're going to get deeper into later, but that would have been very appealing to someone like Shaina. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, it's really appealing to anyone. Like, everyone wants to feel that way. But someone like Shaina is going to read a lot more into it than most people would. Even as Ryan's career was taking off, it wasn't without stress, right? And not just Shaina stress, it was other stress. So after he left the law firm he'd previously worked at with a partner, he was sued by his former partner, and this lawsuit hit Ryan really hard. He's worked so hard, done so much to get where he is, and now someone from your past is coming up and kind of hitting you with a curveball. Ryan felt betrayed. He felt angry, and he lashed out in texts and online posts, writing things like, "I want this piece of shit destroyed. Bury him neck deep at low tide. Throw darts at his head." At one point, he admitted, quote, "My brain has a tripwire in there somewhere, and if it snaps, I worry about what could happen," end quote. On Facebook, Ryan wrote, quote, "So now everyone wants me to settle. A few seconds later, and I want to rig explosives to everything I see," end quote. Now, whether he meant it or not, I don't even know why I'm saying whether he meant it or not. He clearly didn't mean it. Like, he's angry. And this was also a time before you really knew that everything you ever posted on social media would be held onto and like used against you for the entirety of the rest of your life. You could say something completely benign, just like being dramatic and like, "Oh, I want to kill that guy." And then 10 years later, people are like, "She's a murderer." So it was just clear to tell that Ryan was overwhelmed, right? Obviously by the lawsuit, by the pressures of opening and running his new firm where he's kind of the boss. He can't just come to work and clock in. Not that he ever did that, but he can't just come in, do his job and go home. He's the boss. Everybody's looking to him. If there's problems, he's got to fix them. And he was also stressed by the one issue that hadn't gone away or been resolved: Shaina Hubers. Even though months had passed and, time is supposed to make things better, heal all wounds, etc., Shaina still wasn't done with Ryan. In May, she told Ryan that she had a second phone number with an out-of-state area code. And she'd gotten this number because she knew he wouldn't answer the phone if he saw her name and number pop up. So she created a workaround just so she could keep contacting him. And once again, the cycle was starting all over. For the next few months, Ryan tried to keep his distance, but by July, he had let Shaina back into his life. They weren't living together, but Shaina still had a key to his condo, and she kept, some of her toiletries and personal items there. It was clear that somehow in her mind, she considered the place hers as well. And although the break had given Ryan some breathing room, nothing had actually changed. The relationship was still toxic, still as volatile and exhausting as ever. And by August, it was full-blown toxic again. Ryan was overwhelmed, trying to set boundaries that Shaina refused to acknowledge. One night, he texted her, quote, "I'm turning off the phone and padlocking the door," end quote. So if you get a text like that, from a man, from your boyfriend, from your girlfriend, from a woman, you're going to be like, damn, this person's like scared of me. This person really does not want to talk to me. Let me give them their space, right? No, not if you're Shaina, not if you're Shaina Hubers, because instead of respecting that, Shaina flooded Ryan's phone with at least 100 messages over the next 9 hours. Like not even a full day, 100 messages unreplied to. And when Ryan finally replied, all he said was, "I'm not reading any of these. Stop." Now, that same month, things escalated even further. Just after midnight, Ryan showed up at his father Jay's house with his briefcase, computer, and some clothes. And he told Jay that Shaina wouldn't leave his condo and he didn't know what else to do. Jay let him stay, obviously, but he also made it clear to his son that enough was enough. He told Ryan, hey, it's time to end this relationship for good. Jay later said that throughout the night, Shaina kept texting Ryan nonstop. And looking back, he said, quote, "If Ryan had been my daughter, I'd have gotten a restraining order against the boyfriend, but he was my big, strapping son. I figured, let him work this out. As a parent, you have to give your children space to be grown up. That's what you do as a parent," end quote. Ryan did try to work it out, to figure it out. He really did, but Shaina made it difficult. Actually, she made it impossible. If Ryan tried to cut her off completely, she would cry and throw a fit, and sometimes she just wouldn't leave. Jay said there were times he went to Ryan's condo to do laundry, and he found Shaina there, but she wasn't even interacting with Ryan. She just lingered. Jay described it as, quote, "The relationship was as though she was a ghost. I would look at her and think, why are you here?" End quote. And this is just so weird to me, Because if someone told me they didn't want to be with me and even had to leave their own apartment because I was there and that's how much they wanted to get away from me, like that's how little they enjoyed my company, I would be gone. Like you don't have to tell me twice. I'm out. I'll disappear. I'll be a ghost, an actual ghost, not the Shaina Huber's ghost. This person would never see or hear from me again. Like that's all I need to hear. I cannot imagine a more uncomfortable situation to be in, but it almost seemed like Shaina didn't care about what Ryan wanted, as long as she was getting what she wanted, which was, access, contact, and the ability to monitor him. Honestly, Shayna's behavior fits with something called obsessive relational intrusion pattern. And this is where a person, basically, it's really simple. A person refuses to accept a breakup. And this, I believe this can happen in friendships too. They will use any tactic, including making themselves physically unavoidable to maintain a connection, to like always be in that person's like view or periphery. So maybe in Shayna's mind, being there was enough to prevent Ryan from moving on, even if the interactions between them were cold or non-existent. And Ryan was like, get out of here. I hate you, like leave. In her mind, she's like, he doesn't mean that. It's just, dude, I'm sorry, I have to bring this up because this is what it reminds me of suddenly. So have you been watching the TikTok series? This girl, Kendra, has made an entire series, and I think she's on like 50 videos now, where she says she was in love with her psychiatrist and he allowed her to keep seeing him knowing that she was in love with him. And listen, it's a long story. I can actually make a video about it if you want, because it's a lot. It's a wild ride. But this is what it reminds me of, because as you go through the parts, you're like watching the first one and you're like, okay, girl, yeah, like tell us what this predator did. And then after maybe one or two parts, you're like, oh, you're the predator, right? Allegedly, don't come for me, but Kendra, I believe, has some issues mentally, and she's the predator. Like she's harassing this psychiatrist. Okay, she's harassing the psychiatrist, and she will tell. And I don't think she's doing it to be cruel or intentionally like insane. I think she literally believes what she's saying, because she will tell the story, and she'll be like, I said this super inappropriate thing to him, and he was like really uncomfortable. Can you believe it? And it's like, you're listening and you're thinking, are we hearing the same story? What's going on here? So if you guys know about Kendra and her psychiatrist, and her two chat GPTs, Henry and Claude, she also has relationships with her chat GPTs who call her the Oracle and talk to her like she's God, I guess. Oh, and she's also, I think she's like an online mental health coach or something, or like a life coach. If you guys want to hear more about that, let me know. But yes, this is exactly what it reminds me of. Like when Kendra's telling the story of her psychiatrist, you can tell he's being professional, he's maintaining boundaries, but she's seeing him being professional and maintaining boundaries as like, well, he has to do that because of the tension between us. He's putting up boundaries so hard because he's afraid of what will happen between us if he doesn't. So Shaina Hubers could have been kind of like in that place, like, oh, Ryan really loves me so much, and that's why he's so cold to me, and that's why he's trying to push me away because of how strong his feelings are for me. I don't know. But Jay's comment that Shaina was like a ghost is actually incredibly telling. She wasn't there with Ryan at his apartment for reciprocal warmth or companionship. She was just present, hovering, silently reinforcing that she wasn't going away. It's a bit unsettling, because it actually strips away the pretense of affection, and it makes what she was doing feel more like surveillance or possession. And I just want to also point out that obsessive relational intrusion is a behavioral pattern that you'll often see overlapped with certain mental illnesses, or more commonly personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, even obsessive compulsive disorder. So you often see some overlap, comorbidity, I think they call it, like they occur together a lot, I guess. So that fall, Shaina enrolled in a master's program for school counseling at Eastern Kentucky University. She's going to help children with their mental health. She is Kendra. So Ryan, on the other hand, was desperate for a way out. A coworker later recalled that Ryan had confided in her about the relationship, asking, "How do you break up with someone that doesn't want to break up with you?" Ryan started to pull back even more. He stopped texting Shaina as often, but it didn't matter. She wouldn't take no for an answer. At one point, she texted him from a friend's phone, pretending to be a client of his law firm. The messages were cruel, insulting his legal skills, insulting his body. One of the messages read, quote, "Lose the beer gut and get better at your job," end quote. It sounds like Shayna's trying to hit Ryan, like where it hurts, like maybe in his insecurities, the places that she knows he takes a lot of pride, like his physical appearance and his career. It's just mean and unnecessary. Her obsession clearly had not gone away. It had just taken a dark and cruel turn. Shaina was still fixated on Ryan, but now it was like a fatal attraction thing. Now her messages carried more venom than desperation. In a text to a friend who was a dentist, she wrote, quote, "Ryan's been begging me to ask you if you could do his veneers, but please F them up and make him ugly so he'll never get another girl. I hate him," end quote. Another time, she texted Ryan's neighbor, Nikki, and said, quote, "He's such a loser. I swear to God, he doesn't have a job, LOL," end quote. Which, if I'm Nikki, because Nikki in the 48 hours that I saw, 48 hours like episode on this that I saw, Nikki kind of seemed to be like, yeah, maybe Ryan was like abusive, but it's like, Nikki, would the girl who was being abused by her boyfriend text you and be like, "He's such a loser, he doesn't have a job, LOL," and like kind of keep poking the bear? Or would she just want to break up with him and allow him to break up with her and then move on with her life and get away from this horrible situation? And then in around early October 2012, the messages got even more disturbing. In one text, Shaina wrote to a friend, quote, "When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around, shoot, and kill him, and play like it's an accident," end quote. Yeah, that would be believable. I forgot, like, which way the shooting range is. Like, the target was there, but I got turned around. "I'm just a little girl, officer." How was I supposed to know? I'm bad with directions. I don't know if that would work. But then the friend replied back, quote, "Be careful, no accidents," end quote. So the friend's probably like, Shaina, I gotta let you know that if the cops see this later, I want to make sure I respond in a way where I'm like, "Hey, don't do that." And Shaina wrote back, quote, "I'll try not to," end quote. She sent a similar message to another friend after going to the range, saying that, quote, "A part of me wanted to turn around and shoot him," end quote. She also wrote, quote, "He says he is only with me because I make him feel so awful. When I cry, my love has turned to hate," end quote. And here's where things get a little harder to make sense of, because even though Shaina was clearly obsessed with Ryan, she was also often sleeping with other men and also dating someone new, a man named Patrick. It's like she knew Ryan would never commit to her, but still couldn't let him go. So she texted a friend and she said, quote, "It's going to be hard to one day choose between Patrick and Ryan. One means the future and one means being with someone I love who doesn't love me as much," end quote. It's funny that Shaina posed this to her friend as a choice, because if Shaina had told Ryan Poston that she was wrestling with this decision over her two choices, he would have been like, "Please don't choose me. Can I take myself out of the running? Can I remove myself from this equation? Can someone volunteer as tribute to take my spot as one of these choices that you believe that you don't want to be a choice?" Now, despite this so-called choice, Shaina kept showing up in Ryan's life. She wasn't ready to walk away, and she wasn't about to let him do it either. At some point in early October, Ryan found out that Shaina had been seeing another man, and he broke up with her again. And then afterward, Shaina texted a friend and said, quote, "I have a key. I'm showing up, cooking dinner, and telling him that this is the most fucked up thing he's ever put me through," end quote. And that's exactly what she did. She's going to go make him dinner and be like, "This is really messed up, dude. I cheated on you and you broke up with me. Like, I'm sleeping with someone else and you're like, I don't want to have you do that, so I'm going to break up with you. This is messed up. Here, eat this food I cooked you. There's nothing in it." Yeah, that's exactly what she did. She showed up at Ryan's condo uninvited, And surprise, surprise, they got into an argument. Afterward, Ryan left and went to his dad's house for the night. He continued trying to cut things off with Shaina. He texted her, told her to get rid of the key to his apartment, but Shaina didn't. In fact, she bragged about still having it. On October 5th, she texted her friend Carissa, who also happened to be Ryan's step-cousin, saying, quote, "I have the key. He never asked for it back, even when we broke up. Ha ha ha," end quote. But that wasn't true. As we know, and we would come to know, Ryan's own texts show that he had specifically asked Shaina to return the key to his condo. In fact, it is certain that he regretted giving it to her in the first place. And she probably had a bunch of copies made on backup in case he did ask for it back, but regardless, she didn't give it back. By October 10th, Ryan had finally resolved the lawsuit filed by his former law partner, and so that chapter of stress was officially behind him. And, he was settling into running his own firm, being the boss, being the big guy. But Shaina, that chapter of stress was not over. She was still texting him constantly. She wasn't getting the hint that he wasn't interested. At one point, Ryan told a friend that he planned to meet up with her in person before October 12th to officially end things for good. He said he tried everything, texting her, ignoring her, even asking her directly to stop, to leave him alone, but nothing had worked. Now he wanted to look her in the eye and make it clear they were over. And the timing mattered, right? Because Ryan had a date scheduled for the evening of October 12th, and he wanted things clean before he moved forward, because the date was with 23-year-old Audrey Bolte, who was the current Miss Ohio USA at the time, right? Gorgeous girl, very beautiful young woman. And Audrey, who was described as warm and personable, she'd grown up in a suburb of Cincinnati, and her parents, Shelley and Bill, owned Bolte's Grocery. Audrey was really like a down-to-earth kind of person, good family, small town. She was a horse girl in the best sense. She started modeling at 16, but had also competed in track and field. She rode horses competitively through 4-H. She eventually attended St. Andrews University in North Carolina, which is one of the top collegiate equestrian programs in the country. She was on the school's hunt seat team and competed at major events like the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association Nationals. Like I said, down to earth, really pretty, very kind, sweet. She was described as just being very sweet. And Audrey graduated in 2011 with a degree in business administration and a minor in equine studies. So she's smart too. She's smart, she's driven, she has goals, she's motivated. She wanted to work for a nonprofit or stay in the horse world somehow. But in October of 2011, she actually finally entered her first ever beauty pageant, Miss Ohio USA, and she won. So by spring of 2012, she was on national TV competing in the Miss USA pageant, where she placed as second runner-up. In early October 2012, Ryan, who she'd never met before, left a comment on one of Audrey's Facebook posts. And Audrey described the comment as funny and interesting, so they messaged back and forth, then they switched to text. The conversations were lighthearted and fun, nothing too serious, which meant that Audrey had no idea about Shaina Hubers, about what Ryan had been kind of dealing with when it came to Shaina, about his and Shaina's relationship. That was not a topic that was talked about. On October 11th, the night before his date with Audrey, Ryan invited Shaina over to watch the 2012 vice presidential debate at his parents' house, which, if I'm being honest, does send some mixed signals to Shaina. But I believe it goes back to Ryan's conversation with his friend, where he was intending to break things off with her that night face to face, like a good person, like his two fathers had raised him to be, somebody who was, kind and was never mean or cruel, who still cared for Shaina despite all she had done, all she had put him through. So at dinner, remember, it's Shaina, Ryan, and then his parents, and they were all sitting down at dinner together. Ryan shared that the civil lawsuit was officially settled, and everything seemed fine and calm on the surface. But behind the scenes, Ryan was still trying to figure out how to end things once and for all. At one point, he pulled his stepfather aside and told him about his upcoming date with Audrey. He also confided that he didn't know how to get Shaina to go away. He said, quote, "My biggest issue is Shaina's always around. I don't know what to do to get her to leave," end quote. So his stepfather, Peter, told him, once again, be kind, be honest. It seems like Shaina knew Ryan was planning to end things that night because before leaving, she told Ryan's mom, Lisa, that she was saying goodbye for good, that she was out of Ryan's life. But getting rid of Shaina wasn't that easy. She didn't just go home after dinner. Instead, she and Ryan went back to his condo. And while we can't say for certain what happened next, the context suggests that Ryan may have tried to break up with her again and that she refused to leave again. Now, what we do know for sure is that Ryan ended up locking himself in his bedroom, and Shaina called her mother from the condo around 3 a.m. on what was now October 12th. According to Sharon, Shaina's mother, Shaina was a mess. She was sick, in pain, and afraid. So, of course, Sharon drove over immediately and found Ryan hiding in his room, avoiding Shaina entirely. Sharon said that Shaina was shaking and grabbing her left arm. She said her chest hurt, and Sharon said, quote, "I could tell she was hurting," end quote. Sharon was alarmed enough to think that Shaina might be having a stroke, so she begged her daughter to go to the hospital, but Shaina refused. Now, if that's not weird enough, to call your mom from your boyfriend's condo while he's locked in his bedroom so he doesn't have to see you or interact with you, to call her and have her come there while he's his condo, while he's there locked in the bedroom, not coming out and wanting to talk to you people. If that's not weird enough, Shaina's mom, Sharon, stayed with Shaina in Ryan's living room through the night. Yeah, they did that. I think Sharon said something like, she just wanted to put her feet in my lap like she had when she was a little girl, and of course I let her. I guess Shaina eventually calmed down once she got her feet in her mom's lap, and the two of them napped on the couch until mid-morning. Then they removed Shaina's belongings from Ryan's condo and stopped by a mall. Before dropping her off again, Sharon bought her aspirin and gas and urged Shaina once more to go to the hospital. Once again, Shaina refused. It's not clear whether Shaina actually ever left Ryan's apartment that day, but we do know she was still there later that evening. So I don't get this. Sharon and Shaina get Shaina's stuff that's in Ryan's apartment, and then they leave and go to a mall. And then Sharon drops Shaina back at Ryan's apartment, and she stays there. And before we get to that part, though, let's talk about what Ryan was doing on October 12th. That morning, he showed up to work in a noticeably good mood. His coworkers had seen him stressed out and worn down in recent weeks, but something was different now. When his coworker Lori asked what had changed, Ryan told her that he had a date that night with a new girl. A girl that he felt had promise, could be something serious. Lori asked if he'd finally broken things off with Shaina, and Ryan said yes, he had. He also mentioned that he was planning to tell Shaina about the date, just to be clear that things were over. And that worried Lori. When I said it, it worried me immediately. I was like, ugh, don't do that. Lori told Ryan, quote, "I'm very nervous about what you're doing tonight because who knows what Shaina will do. You need to get her gone. I need you to call the police. I need you to call a locksmith. I need you to make it very final," end quote. I don't know why Ryan didn't call a locksmith by now. Those locks would have been changed 7 times by then. There would be deadbolts. There'd be peepholes all over the place, doorbell cameras, just to document how absolutely unhinged Shaina Hoopers was. But Ryan brushed it off. He said, "Hey, Lori, I've got this. Don't you worry about me." Such a bad idea to tell Shaina about the date. Such a bad idea. Meanwhile, Shaina, who, as we know, had been out shopping with her mom, sent a flood of apologetic texts to Ryan. She wrote, quote, "I'm so sorry, I was emotional," end quote. She also claimed that she'd gone to the hospital with a racing heart and she'd been prescribed medication. That wasn't true. It was just another attempt to manipulate him, and Ryan didn't fall for it. He's done by this point. Once you're done, you're done. So all the same bids for attention, all the same manipulation tactics, they don't work anymore once you're mentally done and you've detached. And I think that's where Ryan was. He replied, quote, "I think I need some time by myself this weekend, Shaina," end quote. And Shaina responded, quote, "I'll be by later to get some bath items and head to the Marriott," end quote. Why couldn't you get him at the mall? Why couldn't you get him at the mall? Huh, Shaina? Why couldn't you get him at the mall? Because she wants to go to Ryan's house. Why does she want to go to Ryan's house? Well, you're going to find out. So that night, Ryan was supposed to meet Audrey Bolte, Miss Ohio USA, for the first time in person. They were going to go to a dive bar to drink and play pool and get to know each other. Audrey had told Ryan to change out of his suit before they met at around 10 p.m. Everything seemed to be on track. At around 5:40 p.m., Ryan chatted with two attorneys in his building as he was leaving for the day. They'd known each other for years. He was his usual self, calm, confident, nothing seemed off. At 6 p.m., he got on the phone with his uncle, Jim Poston, who was also an attorney. Jim said Ryan sounded happy and upbeat. He told him the lawsuit had been resolved. So much of his stress had finally been lifted. And after that, Ryan likely went home to change, like Audrey told him to. Get out of his suit, put something more dive bar appropriate, more casual on, get ready for his date. But he never showed up to the bar. Now, given how excited he'd been, and given that it's Miss Ohio, right? It didn't make sense. Audrey was confused and a little concerned, but she had no way of knowing just how serious the reason that Ryan wasn't there was. At 8:53 p.m., not long before Ryan was supposed to be at the bar, a 911 call came in from Ryan's condo. It was Shaina. She told the dispatcher that she had just shot her boyfriend Ryan in self-defense. I'm going to play that 911 call for you now.
Campbell County 911.
Ma'am, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
Okay, where are you at?
I'm at 12 Meadow Lane, Highland Heights, Kentucky. 41076.
Okay, 12 Meadow Lane. Are you in a house or an apartment there?
It's an apartment. It's apartment suite 10.
Is it Meadow, anything else? Meadow View or something?
No, 12 Meadow Lane. Ma'am, I killed him in self-defense.
Okay. Tell me again what unit you're in. It's not showing in my computer.
It's 10.
Okay, you're at 12 Meadow Lane, unit number 10. Okay, hold on. What did you kill him with?
A loaded gun in the house.
Can you tell me where the gun is right now?
The gun is in the house.
Where at, though, man? Tell me where it's at.
I laid it on the bookshelf.
Where at? Laying on a shelf?
On the bookshelf.
Where are you?
I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body.
Okay, are you sure that he is dead?
He's completely dead.
Okay. And how long ago did you shoot him?
I don't know, 15 minutes, not even that long.
10 or 15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Shaina Michelle Huber.
I'm sorry, what is it again? Tell me.
Shaina Michelle Huber.
Huber?
Huber, H-U-B-E-R-S, Huber.
Okay, what's your name again? Shaina or Shaina?
Shaina, S-H-A-I-N-A.
All right, Shaina, I'm just having a hard time hearing you. Okay, all right. Now, you're going to stay on you're going to stay on the line with me, okay? Because this is what we're going to do. The officers don't want me to stay on the line with you, so when they get there, they're going to want to know where that gun is, and we want you to get out safely too, okay?
Okay, are they going to arrest me?
Ma'am, I don't know what they'll do. We're going to send them out. I'm going to stay on the line with you, okay?
I mean, I'm not a murderer, ma'am. I just killed him.
What happened exactly? What happened?
He killed me, and we have my house.
He did.
He beat me and tried to carry me out of the house, and I came back in to get my things, and he was right in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed the gun, and I grabbed it out of his hand and pulled the trigger.
Okay. All right. Do you need an ambulance? Have you been injured?
I'm not injured, ma'am. I was thrown into the side of the couch.
Okay. And how old is he?
He's 29. He'll be 30 he would have been 30 on December the 30th.
All right. What's his name?
Ryan Carter Poston. He's an attorney in Cincinnati.
Okay. Have you had a history of domestic violence with him?
Yes.
Okay. And is this your gun?
No, this is his gun. He keeps loaded guns in the house.
So he slammed you into the couch, but you don't have any injuries?
I don't have any injuries. I was just very frightened. He's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 120. And he picked me up and was carrying me out of the house. And I said, let me get my things at least if we're going to break up. And he wouldn't let me get my things. And when I reached around to try to get my things, I can hear myself echoing in the background, ma'am.
It's just the phone system. The phone system has got a delay.
And he pushed me down from the door all the way to the couch. And when they come here, they'll see how far that is. He threw me across the room. And I was very startled. I was laying on the floor.
Okay. All right.
And I killed him.
Okay. Ma'am, this is what I want you to do, though. You're sure he's not, ma'am, you're sure he's not breathing at all? No, that's okay. They actually have someone who's outside almost right now, but I'm going to stay on the line with you, okay? When they tell me to, what I'm going to tell you to do is walk to the door with your hands up because we want you to come out safely, okay? So that's why I'm staying on the line with you. Ma'am, I'm just a dispatcher. I'm nothing but a dispatcher, so I can't tell you. My job is to keep you on line, make sure my officers get there safely and nothing happens to them, okay?
He was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway. He was making funny noises. I shot him a couple more times just to kill him because I knew he would have been.
I'm sorry, you said you shot him a couple more times after that?
Yeah.
How many times did you shoot him total?
I don't know.
Okay, because he was twitching and you knew he was going to die, so you shot him again?
Enough to make sure he was dead because he was twitching so bad. I didn't want him to lay there and sweat.
So you shot him instead of calling 911?
Do what? Yeah, I did because I knew he was going to die anyway.
Okay.
It was pretty bad. He was like, he was twitching when he was pretty much dead, and I shot him just so he stopped twitching.
Can you see out front of your apartment at all?
I can't see out front. I can see to the back, not the front.
Okay.
Do I walk? Which way do I go? I can hear him. Do I walk out the front door?
Nope. I want you to stay right where you're at.
Stay right where I'm at?
Stay where you're
Okay.
at. Don't tell me.
Okay. Well, they tell me when they're... Well, I have to give them a key to let them in. I actually have to walk all the way down there to let them in.
All right. I want... Okay.
Is he out front?
Ma'am, what I want you to do is I want you to set your phone down, but I do not want you to hang it up. I want you to go to your front door. I want you to open it up, walk outside the door with your hands in front of you.
Okay, I will.
And your hands open. The officers are at the top of the steps, but set the phone down.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I set the phone down.
Set the phone down and put your hands in front of you.
Are you there? Are you there?
I'm here.
I set the phone down. I walk out the front door with my hands and palms down.
Yes, with your hands open and straight in front of you. Officers are at the top of the steps.
Okay, bye.
So I just read the transcript to that 911 call as I was playing it for you, and it's a very weird 911 call. There's a lot that stood out to me about this call. For instance, Shaina's lack of urgency or distress. In most genuine self-defense shootings, the caller is panicked, right? Breathing heavily, crying, talking over themselves because they're in shock. Everything happened so fast, and they're in shock. With Shaina's tone, while it got emotional at points, it comes across more matter of fact and oddly conversational. Like she's just chatting with her girlfriend on the phone. There's very little of that raw, chaotic energy you'd expect from someone who just killed a person in self-defense to save themselves. She almost sounds like she's narrating events rather than reacting to them, like she's telling a story. And then on that note, there was a lot of over-explanation, a lot of story building. She starts explaining why she shot him before she's even given the dispatcher basic details. I think this is a big red flag. In genuine emergencies, the first instinct is to state the crisis, not defend your actions. So she says things like, "I'm not a murderer, ma'am," and then launches into claims of abuse almost immediately. So that's defensive, sort of audience conscious framing. Depending on who you're talking to, you're going to frame the narrative in the way that would better land for that person. The most chilling part is her casual admission that she shot him multiple additional times because he was twitching, and she, quote, knew he was going to die anyways. This isn't a slip of the tongue, right? She repeats it several times, almost trying to justify it as putting him down, putting him out of his misery, like Brian Laundrie said he did with Gabby Petito. Then you've got the shift between the victim and the authority. She alternates between presenting herself as a frightened victim, like he was so much bigger than me, I was scared, and then almost like taking control of the scene, like the guns on a bookshelf. I can let them in. I'll walk out with my hands up. The flip between being vulnerable and composed, to me, suggests that she's managing her image as much as she's reporting an incident, or actually much more than she is reporting an incident. Once again, unprompted details about Ryan. She's saying things the 911 operator not only didn't ask for, but doesn't need to know. It's not important to get the paramedics and first responders there. She tells the dispatcher Ryan's height, weight, birthday, profession. This is not something needed in the moment, and it kind of made her sound detached, like she's giving a biography rather than reporting a killing. I think that she was trying to show the operator like how well she knew Ryan. So, it didn't seem like this was a weird thing. Like, obviously, we've been in a relationship. He's abusive. I know him so well. We've spent a lot of time together. Also, bringing up that he was an attorney in Cincinnati, unnecessary, may have been intended to sort of add weight to her abuse claims, like I was up against a powerful man kind of thing. There was no immediate request for medical help. If Shaina's version of events was true, that she had to shoot Ryan to protect herself, the natural next step would be to call for an ambulance. Instead, she never asked for help for Ryan, even when, asked whether he was breathing still. She focused more on explaining why she shot him than on getting anyone there to save him. So, yeah. The call sounds less like someone in the throes of shock and more like someone who's aware they're creating a record, a narrative that may be scrutinized later. As Shaina ended the 911 call, officers instructed her to lie down on the ground, and she was taken into custody without resistance. Inside the condo, first responders found Ryan on the dining room floor. He was lying next to his wooden oval dining table. There was a pool of blood spreading across its surface. His shirt was torn. He'd been shot 6 times with his own Sig Sauer 38 semi-automatic handgun, once in the head, once in the arm, and multiple times in the chest and back. Ryan was pronounced dead at the scene, and his body was later transported for autopsy. Shaina was taken to the station for questioning. The interrogation was recorded and lasted just over 3 hours. There's a lot to talk about as far as her interrogation goes, and I feel like this video is already on the long side. And the next video is also going to be on the long side, but I think that this is where we'll have to end today, right? Because I can't talk about the interrogation and fit it into this video because there's just way too much. There's way too much to discuss. And then this is also where the similarities between Jodi Arias and Shaina Hubers comes in. They've already been in the room with us, okay? They've been in the room where it happened. They're everywhere. But the way she behaved during her interrogation, it's almost like she was trying to emulate Jodi Arias. And I have theories about why Jodi and Shaina did this kind of thing or these kinds of things in their interrogation, but that will have to wait until next time. So I'm sorry to cut this short or to cut it long. I don't know. I think it's going to be very long. Thank you all so much for being here. I cannot wait to hear what you think about this case so far in the description box. I'm sure many of you already know it, but I'm going into all the details. I'm kind of examining it from every angle. All the comparisons are coming in. Jodi Arias, Brian Laundrie, Kendra, who is in love with her psychiatrist. I'm sorry, but it just occurred to me as I was recording this that it's so similar. Scary. So we will get to all of that next time. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very, very soon.